Good afternoon, children. Once again, it's Anuradha Datar here with the second segment of Standard 7, Lesson number 4. On behalf of SV Union High School and Junior College, I welcome you all. Stay home, stay safe is we have to follow and keep a social distancing, wash your hands, put the mask, and enjoy online teaching. Before we start, let me remind you, make sure you have your textbook, sharp and attentive mind, a pencil, a ruler, and most important, willingness to learn and understand the topic. Standard 7, second part of the lesson number 4, air pressure. In the first part, we have explained about like a hot air balloon. As the air moves up, it becomes lighter. As the air becomes warmer, it becomes lighter and it goes up. We have seen the first diagram, the study of atmosphere we are doing, and it's so important for us. We already have discussed about the factors which affect the air pressure. We know that height from sea level, the temperature, moisture in the air, gravitation of the earth and the rotation of the earth are the key factors. And therefore we say that the air pressure is not uniform at everywhere. They changes. There are many parameters which affect. The first and most important, they are interdependent or they are interrelated to each other is temperature and the pressure. The another important factor, it changes from time to time. The altitude of the region and the temperature of the air and the amount of water vapor in the air are some of the factors that influences the air pressure. Let me begin my explanation of the second topic. In this, you have to remember the tilted angle of the earth. The sun rays near the equatorial belt, they are mostly vertical and they are more intense and therefore they have throughout the year high temperature. The angle toward the poleward, it becomes the low angle, the area occupied by the sun is more and the intensity of the sun which is felt is more. Here one also has to keep in the mind that is the tilted angle of the sun. So sometimes the northern part or the northern hemisphere is closer to the sun and sometimes the southern hemisphere is closer to the sun. That leads to uneven distribution of heat on the globe. Now let me come to the point. The atmosphere structure you must have studied in the science. So the air moves upward. When I say it becomes light, it moves upward, reach up to troposphere, and then it tries to sink. We have also studied about these diagrams about the pressure belt and the planetary wind and the temperate zone. To understand these diagrams, my earlier diagram was important. What are the different zones which are being formed at a different latitudinal extent or at different latitudinal level. Now the next important point which I would to mention again, how air pressure changes with the altitude. See at a lower altitude how low pressure, look at how few atoms are pressing down on the guy on the top of the mountain. Look at the atoms pressing down on the guy at the bottom of the mountain. It tells us the air pressure is low at a greater elevation, higher elevation. It is much more cooler areas or the colder areas. Whereas the near the sea, the land or on the land, near the surface of the land or near the seashore, we experience the high pressure. Now, let us come to this part. It is very important diagram, and if I look at this, the easier way to remember, there is an alternate arrangement of the pressure belts exists. Now, it is very important to know that equatorial low pressure belt extends from 5 degrees north to 5 degrees south, where we get an intense sun rays throughout the year. The temperatures are warm. Because of the warm temperature, the air becomes light. The air becomes warm, it becomes light, and it starts moving upward. As my earlier diagram, I told it reaches up to the tropopause and then it tries to sink. So where this air goes, the air start moving from 0 degrees up to 10-kilometer height. It goes straight and then it start moving towards the poleward margin as the tropopause ends over there and the temperature start falling behind it, below it. Now because of the cool temperature, as we have said, the air becomes cool, it's tried to sink, it is moving towards the poleward margin. Even there is a circulation of air taking place from the poleward, which is the cold air or the cool air with the warm air. Air is a mixture of gases made up of the particles that move randomly in all directions. Air pressure increases when the air is heated, and this is because of the air particles obtain more energy and collide with the walls of the container vigorously. I just want to be here. At 30 degrees latitude, what happened? We found a subtropical high pressure belt develop. The winds the air which start moving towards the poleward, and there is a cold air which comes from the poleward margin, they get collided. When they got collided, they transform the heat, the cooling of the heat and the warm air and the cold air mixes together, and we found this is the area that is the subtop. The air tried to descend. One more point we had to remember: the size of the earth, which is spherical in shape. The area which is occupying the land is comparatively smaller, is slightly smaller. So the air becomes compressed and the subtropical high pressure belt develop at 30 degrees latitude. Another important point: when the air is compressed, air particles collide and with the wall and container more frequently and makes the air pressure increase. They mix the cold air and the warm air and sinks over here. The exchange of heat takes place. The wind or the air become absolutely dry over here. And this is what it happens. And then we say that because of that, the high pressure or the develop over here. It has got an interesting name. Descending air is cool and dry. From 0 degrees it rises, which is a moist air, which is called as an Hadley cell. The polar air which is coming down is a descending air. They mix together and it is a very small zone of 30 degrees latitude. Around 30 degrees latitude, the air formed descends. The air descends and a part of the air, it's very interesting children, the part of the air which flow towards the equator and a part of the air which start moving towards the poleward margin. Now again here there is a circulation of air take place. Air is always a mixing. The earth is rotating, it is revolving. Because of this movement, we always say the air is not still, it is always mixing from warm air to the cold air and cold air to the warm air. The cold air is try to come down and warm air try to push it and start moving towards the poleward margin. So at 60 degrees latitude, what happens over here? the cool air, the air is cool from the subtropical area, it start moving, and the cold air which come from the poleward margin, they mix together. Now they try to push. This is all the water bodies. As the land is much more colder, water is much more warmer at this latitude because of the differences in the heating and the cooling. What happens over here at a 60 degrees latitude? At a 60 degrees latitude, this air pressure, there is no place for them to spread. There is not much land available. So it tries to move upward. This rising warm air is a moist, it becomes moist, it forms the cloud and they receive a precipitation. So here what I told, increasing air, the rising air here, it becomes cool, and we see that because of an intense sunlight, the air becomes light and it starts moving upward. But here it doesn't happen like this. The air is cool, which is moving upward, and it is the poleward margin, the poleward cool air which comes, and they get collided, and it is again they start rising up, clouds which are being formed and give a heavy precipitation. And here at a 60 degrees latitude, we have subpolar low pressure belt. And the polar area, which is very cold climatic condition, the air is trying to descend, and because we are having a high pressure belt which is being developed. A polar cell, it is called as a Farrell cell and Hadley cell, the name of the different scientists which are given. These both three type of circulation of air can also exist in the northern and southern part of the Earth's surface. Can you see this diagram which is more clear to you? This red color, which is warm air, they try to move up to 30 degrees, then it sinks, it get mixed with the winds coming from the polar air, the cooler air, it try to sink, and therefore it becomes, the air becomes much more warmer. Now this rising air, the cool and the air is much more becomes cool, and it is a dry weather which is being experienced. Another a cell which is developed with the Farrell cell, which is the rising warm air, which is a moist air which develops as it mixes with the cold air and gives a precipitation in the temperate lands of the. Now let us see the circulation of wind and the rotation of the earth. Very interesting model, how it shows, how it moves, and it's very easy to understand the tricellular model. Just a small picture for you to understand how this winds originate. The earth is moving from west to east. The winds which are coming from the north, they get deflected to the right hand side, and from the south they get deflected to the left hand side. In the northern hemisphere, the winds blow in a clockwise direction, and in the southern hemisphere the winds blow in the anti-clockwise direction. Here is the important part against which I have just now explained to you. This rising wind are wet, which gives a heavy precipitation in the equatorial area, which is warm and moist air rises, produces rain. It is called as in convectional currents, convectional rain. Cool air sinks down at 30 degrees, warm up and dries out, and the deserts which are being formed in this region. And at 60 degrees, the rising air mixed with the sinking cold air and then leads to the formation of the heavy precipitation at 60 degrees northern and the southern latitude, and we found the subpolar low pressure belt come into an existence. This is the global wind circulation. I hope I tried to explain to you about the circulation of the air. And this is one of the most important topic to understand, and it is one has to understand clearly, taking many parameters into consideration. Thank you. I hope you must have understood. If you have any doubts, please do ask me. Make sure if you like my video, please like the video and subscribe my channel. I'm Anuradha Datar from your school. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you. Good day.